good.
I tell you what we could do. If anybody's watching this episode, we could ask them to give us some feedback. We're torn right now, ladies and gentlemen, between keeping the name Tree Your Mind or potentially moving it towards Midlife Thoughts, which I think Midlife Thoughts is probably a little more descriptive of what we're doing here, describes it more. Mm-hmm. Tree Your Mind's probably a little more unique. Obviously it'd be, I don't know. What do you think?
I like them both.
Yeah.
Tree Your Mind has some innuendos, some inside jokes or meaning to us that it may not to others. And so, I don't know, for relatability and search sake, amongst people looking for things or stumbling across it and saying, hey, what's this? I don't know, Midlife Thoughts to me sums it up real.
That is true, because if you were to search, I think more people would obviously search Midlife Thoughts, and that might pop up more in the search engine.
Mm-hmm. Or they might search Midlife Crisis.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Midlife Thought shows up in that search.
That's true. Tree Your Mind, I think, taps in a little bit into the meditation space too. We're freeing our mind, treeing our mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tree Your Mind might have more longevity. I think once people knew who we were, I think it might stick a little more. But Midlife Thoughts, I think, gets people to us first, or before Tree Your Mind would. Mm-hmm. I think it. I don't know. It's something for the viewers to decide. Let them talk about it a little bit, and then
and if we get anything in the comments,
if we don't like their opinion, we'll just neglect it and we'll name it what we want anyhow. But for right now, so what's on your mind today other than that?
Well, wondering what you want to talk about today.
I don't know. I came here with a blank canvas. What's on your mind?
Well, there was something that we left off with last week that you called me about.
What was that?
There were two things.
Yeah.
And I said, let's not get into it. We got into it for a minute or two on the phone. And then I said, hold on, let's shelve this for the podcast. And either one of them, we don't have to go either direction with these. We can go down a totally different road if you'd like. And pardon me, I've got a little frog in my throat this morning. I've been talking a whole lot.
Yeah.
The discussion around what we want for our kids and more, better.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to define and see maybe what some of our viewership thinks that is, or what their thoughts are on that. And the conversation around the soul.
Yeah.
And the spirit body. Either one of those directions is fine by me, as well as any other curiosities that are on your mind.
So you start. What do you want for our kids? I mean, what do you think? Elaborate on that a little bit more. I know we spent a good amount of time on that last week, but I think there was a little bit more to talk about.
Yeah. I don't know. I'd say my answer to that question is in flux. If I were to answer it 5-6 years ago, my daughter's about to turn 7.
Yeah.
You would have got a totally different answer from me than today.
Yeah.
It would have been...
That's a good thing.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Some other people may not think so because their metric might be my old metric and not my new metric, or a newer version, updated version of my metric. And so they may not think that same thing. When she was born or about to be born, I was still chasing money. I have money and things still on a bit of a pedestal.
Yeah.
And I was starting to question that because as I was acquiring money, things, and experiences, it was like checking boxes. It was short-term frill or fill. And it wasn't very, long-lasting. It was fleeting.
Yeah.
And the reward, the gain was fleeting. You get a new car, watch, outfit, whatever, go on a vacation. It lasts for a few weeks, few months, and then the newness wears off, the experience wears off. You forget about it. You're back in the old trudging down the road on the hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it. In life, comparing yourself to the Joneses down the street. And so, at the time I was, growing an investment portfolio of many rental houses and multiple businesses, all of which I'm not involved with anymore.
Yeah.
Sold or closed them up. And So I was asking myself, I guess in that space, in that midlife opportunity, not crisis, it was an opportunity. What do I want for my daughter, for my family, for me? And so I asked, some peers, some parents, family members, friends, and the constant answer I regularly got, or frequent answer I got, was more.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Yeah,
and rarely could anybody define it beyond that.
Yeah.
Maybe like more money, more things, easier than I had it. Okay, well, how do you make it easier?
Yeah.
How do you go about doing these things? How do you go about having more in quotations for your kid? And then what does that cost? What does that cost to you? Knowing that, for my parents to provide what they did for me, they all had to work, full-time jobs. We were both parents working in the house I grew up, and so they had to work more. As a single dad, I'm going to have to work 80 hours, 100 hours. Okay, can I work smarter, not harder? Some things like that. Well, that's going to cost me time with my daughter. That's going to cost me, maybe some stress or anxiety. The way I show up at home might be affected by the rhythm, pace, anxieties, or any other things that may come along with that extra time and commitment out there in the world to have more, and then that metric back then was more money, more things. In a reset there and selling off things and kind of questioning, my burnout in real estate, having spent 18 years there in that field, working virtually 24/7, people pulling at you or, texting, calling you those all hours of the day. I started thinking I wanted more time with people. I had an experience with cancer back at 29 years old, and I went down a rabbit hole with time.
Yeah.
Realizing, counting time that and I employed this in my life, with great efficiency, that sleeping just 1 hour, for example, sleeping 1 hour less a night, I would gain 15 days in a year of extra activity, life, living. Now, some Tibetan monks might say you're still living in your dreams, so it's you're just changing how you're living.
Yeah.
And looking at this and looking around at that time, I think that's about when I started studying happiness and where happiness comes from, where happy people reside, how they live, what makes them happy. Excuse me. All those sorts of things, because when you study rich people, you want to know how they get rich, how they get their wealth, and how they maintain it. Real estate was a big, became a no-brainer for me, and why I got into that field. So going back to what I want for my daughter. Back then, it was more money, things, rentals when she was born, and over the course of her childhood, that has now changed to I want more happiness, joy. I just want her to experience more of life, and we might all define that differently.
Yeah.
For her to have opportunity, so that might come at a cost of some money. For her to never not be without food, water, shelter, love, those things. So there's some basic support structures there as a human that must be provided, and as a father, as a dad, leaning into the divine masculine, that's to make order of chaos and to provide and protect. So to make sure I'm doing that. The short answer is I want more joy.
Yeah.
More peace, more happiness. A lot of those things have come through my faith and handing it all over to God and just walking the path as best I can that Jesus walked. Being the example that I intend to see in the world. And that's where I'm at right now. Yeah. So it's in flux. It was money and that was on a huge pedestal, and now it's time and love and joy and peace and opportunity with her.
Yeah. I know the first episode, you asked me what a happy person looks like, and I've gone back and forth in my mind with that a lot because I think that there's no single answer to that. I think it's complex. we also
There's studies on it.
we also talked about what more is, and I think I called you and said I want them to be better, right? And so
And then I said, what would
you will
define better?
define better, right? And then the more I
What
think
is
about
better?
it is like you talk about joy and happiness, and I think that's becoming a central theme to what we want from the world. And the more I really thought about it, and I've thought about this a lot over the past few years, is I think joy comes from just accepting who you are currently. And I really think that one of the big problems with the world today is that we put pressures, so many pressures on people to always think that they need more and that they have to be better than something that they are, right? And the term put yourself in the uncomfortable position, right, has become so mainstream. Everybody's like, put yourself in the uncomfortable position to grow and to grow and to grow, right? And
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
get comfortable, get it being uncomfortable, right? And I think there's a lot of, truth and a lot of merit to that. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's led to a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress for people to question if they're good enough for the world. And I think we need to start coming back to be comfortable, live comfortable. My grandfather always said, the key to my happiness was my family and just living a comfortable life, and I think there's something to that, honestly, that we're, and so this is a thought I had, right? Because I'm always analyzing, what I say and what I talk about, and then also what I see other people talk about. One of the biggest, I guess, words that people have used almost as a negative connotation now is the word average, right? I've done it plenty of times. Like if you want to put somebody down, right, you don't say they're the worst, or if you want to, make somebody sound, terrible, you don't say they're awful, right? You say, oh, he's just average, he's mid, right? So we've completely removed that balance, that middle ground, and being like an influencer or somebody who's trying to sell you on their subscriptions. What do they always say? Do you want an average life? And I'm like, okay, I understand what people are going for, right? You should always want to be better and you should always want to grow. But my big problem with that is how are we associating the word average? It's like, are we saying that, you're, only average if you don't have a Lambo or you don't, have, all mansion or what exactly are we tying it to? And I think most people are tying it to income and status and things, material things. And I think that's putting a lot of pressure on people. And my thing is I don't believe anybody in this world is average. I don't think there's average because every single person in this world plays a role in somebody else's life.
Everybody's unique.
Without that bum on the street, that guy might not have that Lambo. You think about it right now. You ride by people every day and you see somebody on the street, right? You see a panhandler. And you ride by, you're like, oh, look at that guy. He's a low life. He's a piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, is he really? Is he really? Because what kind of role was that guy playing in the world? Because that guy wasn't there. Think about it. He's standing there, right? And then you ride by with your daughter, okay? Your daughter might see that guy on the street, and it may trigger something in her mind to say, you know what? I think I want to help people like that. And next thing you know, she becomes one of the biggest and greatest philanthropists or funders of whatever. You know what I mean? She becomes great because that guy sit there. So to me, he plays such a huge role and he is extraordinary. He's way beyond ordinary. And I don't think that people realize, and I think if people really sat back and thought about all the people in their lives and how they played a role in getting them to where they are, good or bad, I think we would find that everybody is way more than average, and nobody is worthless. I don't care what it is. You could have, somebody struggling with drugs. Well, because that person struggled with drugs, maybe he prevented somebody else, or 100 people, there may be 1,000 people that didn't struggle with drugs because that person, was ultimately the sacrifice to save more people. You see what I'm saying? Does that make any sense? So
it does.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. I'm glad you verified. I was hoping you'd tell me that it didn't.
No, we never know how somebody may impact our lives or somebody else's. And what I was going to expand on there was the thought of average. To me, hearing average, better than, worse than, those are all judgment statements.
Exactly.
And, we all use them because our brain puts labels on things to make sense of the world.
Yeah.
And so we compare them. It's the natural activity of the brain. When we do it on certain basis or repeatedly, it can take away from our more positive experience. So, using the statement, for example, comparison is a thief of joy. Comparison is a thief of joy. Can be. I've certainly found that to be true for me. Mm-hmm. Comparing, I don't want to be average, or I don't want my daughter to be average, or I don't want my life to be average, or any number of those statements like that could easily be compared to everybody else. Exactly. Or I want more. That's a comparing statement. It really is. And at the end of the day, I found, and studies will show this, that people that are happy tend to have some things in common. They have deep and meaningful relationships, and the two things that tend to come to the top of the surface, rise to the top, are people that are happy tend to have deep and meaningful relationships. So they got friends, they got family, support systems, community. If it's not family, it's probably some close friends or neighbors or community of some sorts. And they have some type of spiritual belief system. And it doesn't matter the religion. They can just be spiritual in nature. Those two things tend to come to the top. What I would add to that, and what I've noticed just from my experience, and I've taken this from other people as well, and I trust that I'll hand it off to my daughter, is that peace for me, peace, happiness, and joy for me has come when I dropped the comparisons, when I stopped comparing, when I became comfortable with myself.
It's so funny you said that. Go ahead, keep going.
No, it's that simple, and it's hard to do. Mm-hmm. It took 40 years for me to decide, all right, I'm done putting on a suit or a costume. It wasn't that I wasn't being me.
Yeah.
It didn't feel fully authentic. It didn't feel like, it took growing my hair out and, wearing the same type of outfit every day and embracing certain things that about me that I hadn't been willing to embrace that.
It's so funny you said that, though, because for so long, I think like most people in the real estate industry, you always want to be the best. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Everybody's always promoting yourself, number one, right? And it wasn't until I got to the point where I stopped caring about if I was the best or not that I really started to find more joy in even my career. Mm-hmm. It just didn't bother me. Don't get me wrong. I still want to do deals. I still want to. You still want to. I still want to broker. I still enjoy it, but it's like I don't care anymore. I don't care if I'm the best by any standards, but my own. And
when did you get to that point, or was there any one thing that kind of took you over that tipping point or over that hill?
I think naturally, you know how I am. If everybody's going one way, I want to go another way. Mm-hmm. And I think I watched so many people be consumed about putting that number one label, with 100 points and, a fine line of like 100 different reasons why they're number one, right? I think I got so tired of seeing it that I was almost like I wanted to go the other direction, and I almost wanted to destroy the narrative that number one even matters, And then I got to thinking, a lot of times in our industry, you'll get clients that will try to rope you into talking about your competition. And I've never been a fan of talking bad about my competition. I respect my competition, not just in business, but, as people. And oftentimes I'm like, but they're good. They're good brokers. If they couldn't get something done, I don't think it's necessarily on them. It's just other factors that move around. And you actually were the one that told me this line, right? And I just to kind of pivot a little bit, you told me this line one time, and I will never forget it. It was like one of the first things that anybody told me when I got into real estate, and I have used this line probably once or twice a year since. And it's so true. You said it's better to be the firstborn son, the second husband, and the third realtor. And I've never fucking forgot that. Like, it's like so spot on too, because sometimes timing just matters. You can be the greatest broker in the world.
I forgot about that.
And not, it was so spot on.
Second wife and third realtor.
Yeah, it was so spot on. You told me that, and I was like, oh my God, that's so true. And I see that more. But I think, naturally everybody's so caught up in the rat race. And one of the reasons that I really started to try to do what I've been doing, into the entertainment space was because I'm passionate about it, but also to kind of pull the mask back and the layer back from people and to show them that if somebody they perceived as so professional and, such a businessman as myself could actually show them, what he's like behind closed doors, and dance in the living room while, everybody's watching, so to speak.
Go check out that video if you haven't.
Right. I don't know. I'm sure there's a few of them. But if I, if I was willing to do those things, then maybe other people were too. And if we could, get a little more vulnerable, with who we are, then maybe we would, stop with all the necessary, thoughts that you've got to be number one at everything, and that the best makes you happy. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I think being the best makes some people happy. And I'm not saying I'm not competitive, because I am. And I would be sitting here lying to you if I didn't say that things bother me when I don't get a deal done or somebody else may get something done that I do. Yeah, that's true. And I think that part of me, and recognizing that I may say some things that sound hypocritical, because I will tell you I am a self-proclaimed hypocrite. But I don't know that it's necessarily being a hypocrite, or it's just something that I like to refer to. It's self-actualization. And I think self-actualization is one of the most key components to finding joy. Because if you understand yourself, I think then you become comfortable with yourself. And once you become comfortable in your own skin, I just think that's really the ultimate form of happiness. And it's just like going back to the average thing we talked about. If there's anybody out there, I want you guys, seriously, if there's anybody listening to this, I want you to understand something, because I think there's a lot of you, and perhaps it's not you, perhaps it's somebody that subscribes to these ideas that if you just are living a so-called normal life and you're average, that's a bad thing. And it's not. Let me tell you something right now. If you can take care of your family, right? If you go to work every day and you bust your ass and you're a good person, and you come home and you take care of things and handle your business, that's not average, that's heroic. That's heroic. And we should start promoting that and making people feel good about those things instead of making them feel like they need something more than what they're doing. Because a fucking Lambo doesn't make you happy. Don't get me wrong. If you ask me what my dream car is, it's the 1988 Lamborghini Countach. But, I love it. But I'm also not a really big car guy either. I'm, I've had my caddies, but I don't really care.
I think you're touching on, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think you're touching on a very valid point, kind of maybe a crossroads where we are in society, or the end of a pendulum swing one way.
Yeah.
And that's this space of toxic masculinity and toxic femininity. And, I fell into that camp probably a while back, or at least the fringe edges of that camp, with the competitive nature, wanting more,
yeah.
And my ego car and all that stuff at the time. And I think of this quote by John Maxwell, and this is I remember this moment. There was a couple of quotes from this keynote speech that he gave, and he said, for the man that says it's lonely at the top, he just went about it the wrong way.
I love that.
And if you think about it, anybody that climbs to the top of a really tall mountain, Mount Everest, Kilimanjaro, any of those, it takes a whole crew.
Yeah.
It takes, declimatization, climatization, it takes all that stuff, weeks of preparation, months, years of working their body and their lungs. They don't do it alone. And that's been kind of a motto of mine, at least in the back of my head, since then, 10, 12, 11 years ago. And I see people, you've seen people, we know people, both, celebrities, influencers, big business people, local, regional, national, international, that, run a hard race by themselves, or it seems to be.
Yeah.
And they do look lonely and broken and frazzled or despondent.
Yeah.
Or if they don't, they tend to crash. And there's a few of them in the news right now. I won't even go there. 'Cause
we don't have enough time for that conversation.
We do not.
But I do want to pick your brain on that at some point.
Yeah.
I just wish we could.
Let's let that fizzle out a little
I just
bit.
wish that conversation would be more current when we probably put the episode out. That's the only problem. But
Let's get to a later episode.
Let's get to a later
here.
episode.
Let
Yeah.
some of this stuff
go,
play out.
but go ahead. Yeah. So you're talking about running that race and being frazzled. Yeah.
Yeah. So is average okay? Well, we've gotten so far away from that, that being okay. Like, hey, taking care of my family is okay. Paying the bills and living the life I want to live is okay.
Yeah.
So where do we adopt all these things? I adopted them from society, from the magazines, the movies, music, maybe a little bit from my parents. But I wanted way more than they had, and maybe they wanted more for me.
Mm-hmm.
Did I adopt that as well? I don't know. Probably a little bit. And so people like myself can get caught up in more. I'm me. I've got the coolest truck. I'm the strongest. I've got the hottest wife. I've got the most money in the bank account. I've got the biggest.
Yeah.
So much so that they lose themselves.
Yeah.
Like I did. And, so what do I want for my daughter? It's less of that.
Yeah. You found yourself in the less.
Yeah, letting go of things.
Yeah.
Having things taken from me, and not that I'm a victim, just, some situations played out
Yeah.
that I was without this or that, and it caused me to just pare down my life, and remove things that weren't working for me. And what got me here won't get me there, knowing that as well. I kind of looked at it as a midlife reset. It was halftime.
Yeah.
And looking around, especially in the coaching world, you see a lot of people that resonates with. That story resonates with them.
It's good to hear that.
They've gotten burnout, or they have lost themselves chasing for what?
Yeah.
Now they've got the money in the bank account. They've got the house. They've got the 2.5 kids. They've got the car, the fun weekend car, the vacation house. They're doing it, right?
Do you think it's easier to have the minimalist mind, to go back to the minimalist mindset once you've already acquired what you feel like you wanted?
It might be a process for some people. I mean, it's certainly taken me years, and it going in within.
Yeah.
What makes me happy, what brings me joy.
Yeah.
What gets me excited, and I think everybody, it might serve most people anyway to go through some type of process like that.
Yeah.
Recalibrate. What is your measuring stick? Is it money? And if it was money and that's not working, then what's your new measuring stick? What score? You switching scoreboards? You switching fields?
Yeah.
To use sports metaphors. You're playing a whole different ballgame, or you starting over? Is it inning number one again?
Yeah.
And so, we acquire all these things. We acquire, we were talking before the episode or just coming in here about, electronics in the bedroom. And so, I grew up with a TV in my room.
Yeah.
I fell asleep to the TV. If it wasn't, the high five at 9,
Same here.
it was a TV. It was a black and white hockey game because it would kind of bore me and I'd fall asleep.
Yeah.
And I had a black and white TV at first. And, it took me, years later as an adult, reassessing those things, my sleep patterns, studying some sleep habits and how to get the most out of your sleep, how to reset. And, one of those things was pulling all the electronics out of the room. So, minimizing things might be a process to some people. It might be easier for others than it is or was for me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm with you. The TV's kind of hard. I don't know. It's a hard thing for me to pull away from.
So let me give you some thoughts on that. When somebody explained the bedroom to me is for rest.
Yeah.
So don't work in your bedroom. Don't take your work into the bedroom. Keep the TV and electronics out of there. You've got little red lights and green lights on everything in your bedroom in the middle of the night, or I don't anymore, but I did at the time. All of those mess with your senses, even through your eyelids. And so if you are following the natural rhythm of your human body, then, you should be going to sleep, right after the sun goes down and waking up right as the sun comes up. And yet we don't do that. We stay up as late as we can. We bombard ourselves with frequencies.
Guilty as charged. It's awful.
So I used to be a big gamer. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I was a huge Call of Duty fan, Fable, a bunch of games. Those were the two I was playing last before I got off of video games. I was sitting there playing Call of Duty, though, till, 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
No, I needed to be up by 6, 7, 8 a.m. 8 at the latest, and 6, 7 a.m. at the time. And I got to the point where I'm like, okay, I got to start, I became aware of this, and, knowledge is power, or half the battle anyway. And so I started cutting back my time. What time am I getting off the game? I'm going to cut back from midnight till 11, from 1 o'clock till midnight till 11 over time. And I was doing that, but I wasn't feeling much more rested in the morning, and I was still having trouble going to bed. It was brought to my attention that, I was wound up. Running around shooting and killing people on a game is adrenalizing.
Yeah.
It can bring your frequency up, and anxiety and all that stuff. So decompressing from that would take 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Sometimes more for your body to really settle down from, really tense game of anything on Xbox. And so one day my Xbox died on me, and I said, that's my sign.
Yeah.
That's my sign. And I never replaced it. And I vowed that I was going to get those 3 to 5 hours back every night and apply it to something, more enjoyable, or growing myself. Even if it was just resetting and decompressing, it was in a different way. It was reading, it was meditating, it was stretching, it was something else that was a little more productive. Now, sometimes you got to turn the mind off, and you just got to.
It's funny. I played video games obviously a lot as a kid in college and things like that. I always played like sports games, NBA Jam and NHL hockey and stuff. But I over the past 20 years or so, I rarely play any video games. But I do keep a Sega Genesis in the house. And if I do want to get a little bit of therapy to clear my mind, I'll go put like NHL 95 in and just sit there and play that. It's like so mindless, and it kind of helps me reset and clear my mind. But those games were simple back then, and I'll tell you, it's funny, you mentioned games, and I don't want to go too far, and this is probably another conversation, but I really think the games we played and how we played video games really shaped us, our generation.
In what way?
Well, those games back then, I think they thickened our skin a lot, and they helped us master the small things more. Because you think about it, if you started out, rarely could you save a game and come back at the same place. You always had to start all the way back at the beginning. And it was like, oh my God, I just made it to level freaking 8. I almost beat the boss, and now I got to go all the way back and start all over again. Jesus Christ, right? But you think about it, going back and being able to master those small steps all over again and all over again, right? I think there was something to that. And also, when you beat a game back then, it's like nowadays, everybody just plays Fortnite, or you were playing Call of Duty, right? I feel like everybody just keeps playing the same games over and over again, over and over again. And if you played a sports game when we were growing up, okay, I can understand that. But if you were playing a game where you were trying to beat it or conquer it, chances are once you beat it, you were done with it. And I really think, and it almost goes into the Renaissance man conversation we have too. I really think that plays a lot to do with the psyche of our generation. It's like once we feel like we've conquered something, a career, a territory. It's like, all right, now, what can we go to next? What can we play next? What can we get into next? And I think we're always constantly on a new conquest all the time. And I think
It's human nature.
I think it's human nature. But I think our video games back then really played a role in that. All right, I beat this, I'm on to the next thing. Does that make any sense? I don't know. I mean,
well, it's kind of the dance I do too in my head with the conversation around comfortability. Because human nature is to explore, to create. If we're made in God's image and God was the ultimate creator, then are we, small versions of that and creators of our own little world, creating this room, this podcast, the bedroom setup that I have that's, feels comfy and cozy, So there's a level of comfort, yet there's also going to be that, once we get comfortable, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
What else can I do? So being okay with that, has been something I've been getting used to as well. And I think that is a struggle for a lot of people, especially like you and I are or were really competitive by nature, wanting to perform at a high level, not wanting to be average, at some point in our life anyway. And, getting okay with, hey, maybe I am average. Yeah. Maybe I'm just this way, and that's cool.
Yeah, maybe you're the best at being average, right? You know what I mean? Like, I talk about that all the time with moderation, right? Like, I like you, partied a lot. And it was like, how much could you handle? How much could you take? How much could you do? Yeah. Right? And I always prided myself. I actually had, I think one of the lines I put in my high school not yearbook, but one of the little pamphlets they put out was, never exceed your limit, over exceeded, I think is what I said, right? But I've learned over time that the best buzz is moderation. It's just finding that level and finding that space, not too much, not too little, just finding the right and trying to ride it out and trying to figure out how I can just ride that perfect little wave, throughout the night or whatever. And I think, learning to be the best at that and being in control of those urges, I think there's something to it, man. I really do, I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah.
It does. And
the reason I ask you that, and I'll tell you why I ask you that, I keep asking you, I don't know if that makes any sense, right? So a few weeks ago, you and I were on the phone together, and you said something to me, and we had a conversation, and I really put some thought into this after this conversation, but I don't remember what we were talking about. It was like the meaning of life or something to do with it.
You put a lot of thought into all your conversations. And that's one thing I love about you.
You do too,
yes, I do.
Right?
I do.
But I really put some thought into this, and we were talking, and you were like, you sound confused. And I was like, and I remember telling you this, I said, I like to stay confused. And I like being confused. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't know that confused is the proper term. I think I'm like deliberately uncertain. Like, because I feel like knowledge isn't something. I feel like knowledge isn't something you really receive. I think it's something you wrestle with. Like, that's why, like, naturally, whenever I get a thought, like, my first instinct is to, like, not to get validation for my thought, but to run to somebody to see if there's another side of my thought. Because me testing my thoughts is where I think that knowledge comes from.
That's where we'll kick ideas back and forth.
Like, I want something that contradicts my thought. And don't get me wrong, I can very much, slow myself up in life because of that.
Why do you think it is that you want something to contradict your thought? I have an idea here.
Because I don't think there's ever really, if it goes back to truth, and I think you and I are truth seekers, I don't ever think you can truly find it when you're talking about the unknown, right? And so when we're talking about the unknown, I feel like you gain more knowledge by wrestling with your own thoughts and your own ideas. And you're also trying to keep finding that middle, that moderate level that we're talking about, that balance. That balance has even become a negative word nowadays. People are like, there's no balance. I'm like, fuck you mean? The whole world's balanced, man. That's where to find life, man.
Well, there's debate that there's constant oscillation.
Well, it's a seesaw.
From afar, it looks like balance.
But it's a seesaw. Sometimes it's going to be 80, sometimes it's going to be 20. But there's something in
If you looked at a ballerina's toe in point when she's up on her toe and 60 frames per second, you would see that there's constant little adjustments for her to stay in point.
Okay.
And yeah, so she looks balanced from the back,
but she's not.
But she's not. She's making these micro, movements to stay in point on her toe.
Nothing's ever. You're right. Nothing's ever truly balanced. But
That comes from the One Thing
Yeah.
by Gary Keller.
Yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead. So you were getting ready to expand on something there, I think, before we got into the ballerina and all that.
Yeah, I lost.
I cut you off. But no. But that's what I was trying to get into. Was the talk we had about confusion and
So I see a bit of me and you.
Yeah.
In that I and you and me, and what I mean by that is that I too am seeking, opposite points and opinions, often to find out what is true in the middle or what's absolute. Yeah. And I guess there's some concern in my head, I've identified this before, of missing a fact, missing a piece of critical information to discern what is true or fact.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's part of what's going on in your head. Are you looking for, hey, maybe I missed an angle or a piece of information over here that plays into this?
I think to a degree, but I also think searching for that, maybe that contradiction or to my own thought, especially when you get into some of the critical issues we're dealing with today. Mm-hmm. I think it also helps you find understanding. Mm-hmm. Because there's times where I can be so convinced and so, just ready to jump on something, and I'm like, hold on, man, I got to pull myself back here a little bit.
Stay curious.
I need to pull myself back here a little bit, and think about this before I'm ready to jump all in on this side. And that it's funny because we're talking about kids and we're talking about, now I think we're kind of transitioning into, understanding, right? And I think that's a big part of what the world's missing today is that understanding. And I've often said that if we really wanted to shape this new generation, then we should add philosophy as a core part of the curriculum of every school in the country, starting at sixth grade, probably, I think, fifth or sixth grade. And I just think that if we did that, we wouldn't have all of the issues and the back and forth, left, right bullshit that we have, because it would help kids more critically think and use logic and reasoning to maybe, get along better with somebody that, looks different than them, or their parents told them isn't a good person because, I don't know, they're a Republican or a Democrat or a Catholic or a Jew or whatever it is. I think philosophy would really, really help bridge the divide and the gap in the country. I don't think that will ever happen because, unfortunately, I think the powers that be don't want that to happen. It's funny. Does your daughter have Common Core math yet?
No.
Huh? You haven't got into Common Core math?
No.
Dude. So I got this thought that Common Core math, this is like new math, right? They've basically turned 2 + 2 into quantum physics is what they've done. It's freaking crazy. And their thought is, well, we're trying to teach kids how to think different ways and outside the box. But I'm like, I don't think that's the case. If you wanted kids to think outside the box, then implement philosophy, right? Thinking outside the box, I think it's meant to really confuse kids and slow kids up, right, mathematically, and get them so focused on something so easy, when there's more complex issues in the world that they could help, I think, solve in their minds if they had a class like philosophy, even psychology, that would be important too. The whole world's basically, controlled by psychological warfare, unfortunately, and if you teach these people, if you give them even a 101 level understanding of psychology or philosophy, it'd be a lot harder to control society with, psychological warfare, correct?
Yeah, just taking an entry-level NLP class through the sales company I was with years ago made me decide I was done with TV because I saw the programming and how they could talk to, they being the advertisers.
Yeah.
talk to your emotions, speak to your emotions, your subconscious, your psyche, within 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Within a quick little slide. And so, about that time, I just cut the news out of my life, and I decided I was done with TV.
Yeah.
You see it in advertisements in print as well. And I'm thankfully cluing my daughter in on it. She sees an advertisement, Dad, they're just trying to, and she'll define it for me, which is fantastic. But to your point, I'm not going to disagree with you that it's all some type of psychological op of sorts, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you start studying human behavior, whether it's sociology or psychology or anthropology, you start to see patterns, and they're hard to unsee.
Yeah.
So.
What was I going to tell you about the TV? You said you took it out of your house completely?
No, I just stopped watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's still a TV in the family room that will have, a surfing video on it or some music concert, or I'll watch a documentary or something, like an occasional movie on there.
Yeah. TV, man, it's funny because even like the way TV's changed and our content's changed throughout time is different too. I mean, you look at the show.
Some of it's the same. They've always tried to sell you something.
Oh no, you're right about that. No, that's
an image in a program, like a TV, program. It used to be called programming back in the day.
Yeah.
So whether it was a family scene or family room, they were trying to sell you that identity of Americana, or the TV commercials in between, where they were trying to sell you the product or the experience that the product delivered.
Yeah.
The safety that thing delivered, and you needed that now.
Yeah.
So what were you going to say about that?
No, I just think about like the content we grew up watching.
That was different.
The big difference The big difference I see between our generation of let's say cartoons for example, right, or even sitcoms, because they dominated the airwaves, at least for people our age back in the 80s and 90s. Mostly every sitcom at the end had a moral to it. Almost every cartoon we watched always had a moral. G.I. Joe, Knowing's Half the Battle. At the end of every He-Man, they came back and had a moral to it, right? And what I noticed, because I was excited, like when I have kids, I'm a big nerd. I have kids, I sat down, I think on the 2013, which was unfortunately the last year of Saturday morning cartoons, and I sat down ready to watch cartoons with my baby, who couldn't even watch cartoons at the time, and that ended a year later. But then when I started actually paying attention to their cartoons and to their content, I noticed that the cartoons were more about education than they were morals. And we grew up, I think, with probably more of a moral compass instilled in us because of some of those, things that we learned from those shows. And I think this new generation, like everybody's like, they're smart asses. They're little smart asses. And I'm like, well, no wonder, because all their shows were focused on like education, You
talking about like Gen Alpha?
Gen Alpha, yeah, I think the back into Gen Z. I don't know. I just think that's one of the biggest differences I see like in content is, I think our stuff was more focused on morals, and like I think you and I were talking the other day about something, and I was like, oh, I learned that from Full House. Oh, I learned that. And I was an only child, and my parents worked a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So I have an attachment to those sitcoms because in a sense, my parents were working a lot. We would be sitting at, the dinner table a lot, and if they weren't working, they were talking about work. And more power to them. Again, they were busting their ass, trying to provide a great life,
doing
for their son.
Told and thought was
so naturally, I would be downstairs, like I don't want to hear them talking about, the power company anymore. So I'd be downstairs, watching Cosby or watching, Full House or Andy Griffith or whatever. So it's like those TV families almost raised me in a sense. Like I was almost raised by them, and I learned so much from those shows, and they were so wholesome. But I feel like content today has just moved so far away from that wholesome aspect,
How come? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Is that the way they want our programming to go? I mean, that's the only thing I could think of. Do they want our do they want our programming, or that? The thing is naturally, I think the TV execs want to make money, right? So do they want the programming to be that way, or do they recognize that, a more risque or more content that's not as wholesome gets more viewership? So are we
sells more ads?
So like, are we a product of basically what we're watching, right? Or is the product, reflection of us, the consumer?
What's the term? Follow the money.
Yeah, like that's a question. We are what we eat, right? Mm-hmm. Essentially.
Yeah, and
we're being fed.
And that includes, visually or how we feed our mind with our thoughts or with other people's thoughts or thoughts from those TV programs. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So back to the original part of this conversation and where did that more come from? I was asking myself, I was asking my parents, some friends of ours, some other family members, and what more was for them, and they couldn't define it. And so I wonder if that was just handed down to us,
programmed into us,
right?
Yeah,
and everybody's definition is different. Yeah, a lot of them might be in sync with each other.
Yeah.
Money, material things, possessions, nice watch, car, clothes, house, haircut, whatever. Whatever that is for you, number of bags, handbags, yada, yada.
You go back to follow the money. Who's benefiting from the idea of more, right?
So our money goes into these things.
Yeah.
And away from our family.
Exactly. And we live in debt in the process. Mm-hmm. And who's collecting the debt and the interest on the debt?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've got a whole generation. I mean, the debt in this country is
And we're told not to
insane.
We're told not to collect a whole bunch of debt or to pay it off.
Yeah.
And to do our best to pay it off. Live below our means, et cetera, et cetera. Yet the example we're given on the highest level, i.e. our government, is doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Is just collecting and compounding more and more debt to the point where we're going to default on it, or it looks like we're
and I'll ask you this question, and I brought this up multiple times, and I don't know that I'm 100% right, but we're so focused on inflation right now, and I think a large part of it comes from everybody wants to blame the government. It's government spending. It's they're printing too much money and all that, which I don't disagree with.
We've got to be accountable to the point we've allowed it.
But how much of our spending and our consumerism it plays a role in inflation? Because no matter what, no matter what, the things have increased over the past 2 or 3 years. People are still spending. People are still spending money. I don't know if they're spending as much. People are still spending. We're like, $1 trillion in debt, in credit card debt in this country. I think the average citizen, I think, carries about like $8,000 in credit card debt. That has to play a role in inflation. If we stop spending, just basic thought, and I could be wrong, no economist, but if you stop buying, somebody's going to have to put something on sale to get you to come to their store, correct?
Or the profit margins are going to have to come down for each of the companies.
Yeah, in order for them to survive.
Yeah.
So if we spend less, I feel like
for that economy too.
But if you can name your price, basically, and you could say, well, shit, I can charge $8 more. We'll just blame it on inflation and the government. And people are still coming and spending, they're paying double what they used to pay for a hamburger, and they're okay with it. Why the fuck am I going to charge less when I can get more money out of it, right?
Well, I came across a news article this morning about Pepsi. Yeah. And Pepsi, Frito-Lay, the Doritos, they own all those companies. And they had recently increased the price of everything based on some economic reports that came out in the U.S. And everybody stopped buying. They had reached a threshold that people stopped consuming. They knew their volume was going to go down. They didn't realize to the degree that it did. And so they actually are backtracking, and immediately effective today, 15% decrease or more across all their product line. And so that shows you that there is some power there, and also maybe that people are, amongst other things, that people are potentially at their threshold, at their absolute limit. And we're seeing some signs in the car industry and some other places, that I'm reading online. And again, I'm not an economist. It's just a curiosity of things that interest me. So, back to the conversation of what do I want for my daughter and more, and to your answer of better. Well, over the phone last time, we talked about this very briefly, less may be more.
Yeah.
And what is better? That's different for everybody.
You asked me that, and I put some thought into that too. And I think it's hard to completely define what better is, like most things. But I think better, in my opinion, is them being better at the things that I'm bad at, right? And one of the things is like, I try to teach them to do more things on their own, right? Because my parents, they had one child. So if they taught me how to do something, a lot of times my dad, because he's very particular, great man. My dad's a fantastic human being. But a lot of times his OCD would kick in so bad that he would teach me how to do something, and if I wasn't doing it right, like I couldn't satisfy him, so he would just take it over, right? And then in the process, I never really learned how to do a lot of things because either A, he took it from me before I had a chance to do it, or B, which is B's really the truthful answer I'm going to give you, is I learned that if I just played dumb, then he would just do it for me, and it caused me to get lazy on a lot of things. And I mean, my God, I to this day, I really regret not paying attention and not really like fighting my dad over. No, dude, let me do it, because there's so many things he could have taught me, and like handyman wise. Like nowadays, I'm starting to try to get into that. Like I want to learn some of these trades that I didn't pick up on, and my dad could fix fucking anything, So I'm trying to learn that a little bit more because I didn't get it. So now with my kids, in order to make them better, I'm quick to be like, here's how you do it. You do it. I'm not touching. No, you figure it out, dude. You figure it out. Like I remember Monroe came in, wanted to hang Christmas lights up outside. Wanted to put one of those inflatables up out, and I was like, dude, like I'm not ready to do it. Like I'm in the middle cooking. I'm baking some cookies because I do like baking some cookies. That is one thing I got from my dad. So anyhow, I was like, I tell you what, you want to do it? Go figure it out. He just looked at me like I was nuts. He's like, 9, 10 years old. Like, you want me to figure this out? Like, I'm like, yeah, go figure it out, dude. Go figure it out.
How bad could he mess it up?
Yeah. How bad can he mess it up? So he comes back in, and lo and behold, this little son of a bitch actually not only put it up, but put it up in a better spot than I've been putting it up all the years prior, and figured out how to secure it better than I would have, because he spent time on it. He thought about it. I was so proud of him, man. And so when I think about being better, and trust me, things like that isn't the only thing, my only flaws. I have a lot of flaws, like
we both have a lot of
I wouldn't
flaws.
say my organizational skills are the best. My oldest son's organizational skills are unbelievable, and I'm very proud of him of that.
You know what? You're perfect just the way you are.
You're right, but I don't want them to get lost on my good traits, right? I also don't want me putting all my indiscretions on them and all my flaws on them to try to reconcile things and issues with myself through them. I don't want to do that and then to lose sight of like the traits that they probably naturally have, in them from me, which, I think everybody has great qualities, but that's, and I think, there's so many, I look at like, a lot of guys who probably weren't good at sports. They're so hard on their kids wanting them to be good at sports because they weren't, and, it's like, that's a lot to put on a child. That's a lot to put on. You're putting your indiscretions and your flaws and your issues with yourself on them.
Or the parents that didn't have the opportunity for sports or whatever, and they're forcing their kids.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. I think another thing is about being better is I want my kids to feel like they have less pressure. Like I want them to understand that I'm proud of them no matter what they do. But I do want them to work hard. That's what I tell them. I don't care what you do in life, right? What you want to do, anything you want to do. I want you to find something you like doing. It could be multiple things, but I want you to put 150% into it.
Yeah. Give it a good go.
Give it a go. Put everything you got into it. I'd rather you be out there busting your ass trying.
You won't regret it.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
And it's like you and I were talking, like you were saying you struggle with dyslexia, right? Didn't you say you struggle with that, which is
I still do. I notice it more often.
But that's actually I think it's a great thing, really, because it allows you to see things in a whole different perspective, right? In a sense, like, how do you know you're dyslexic, not everybody else, right? Maybe you're seeing things the way they're supposed to be.
I'm seeing it more as a gift these days that still has some hurdles at times.
But think about this, because you and I both talk about how we're slow readers. I'm a very slow reader.
I dictate to myself.
Oh my God.
I narrate as if it's a story.
My wife is like, she laughs at me because
You probably retain a good chunk of it, though, more than if you sped up.
Well, that's what I was going to say is
I'm just guessing.
Sometimes the people who struggle with things and learn slower and develop slower are actually way better than the people who got things easier because they let up, the tortoise and the hare, essentially, But I tell you, it's, I don't know. Yeah, I think the people in your life, also the relationships you build, make you better. I mean, my wife made me infinitely better than I've ever been, and that sounds probably mushy and shit, but it's the truth. I mean, she saved my life twice. I mean, essentially, she has. And I think she made me, I always kind of, I was going to say she made me want more. That's what I was going to fall into the trap, but she made me really, at the time when I really needed it, a better version of what, I think I desired to be at some point in my life. I always had big ideas and big thoughts and all these things and how I wanted life to go. But I think she honed in a lot of those things and made me focus on the right things in life, And I've often said, I think everybody has an idea of what like their greatest moments should be like. I think like, you think about what's your greatest moments be like. I think initially I probably would have envisioned like this big ballroom and a tuxedo and all these things, right? And I've often said that it's crazy because I never expected like the most monumental moment of my life to come when I was in an old pair of gym shorts, driving my wife and child home from the hospital when I had them. You don't think about that. In my mind, it's like this big elaborate setting, it's this big elaborate, idea, of what, the most monumental moment in celebrating your life should be like, right? But it wasn't that. It was just simple. Even for our kids, there's so many families out there who I think they have to give their kids like fancy trips to Disney. And don't get me wrong, we've been to Disney a couple times with our kids, and you constantly got to take them to things. You constantly got to give them things to make, them feel like they're cared about. But the thing is most kids, when you go back and ask, and I'm sure you and I could share the same sentiment here. When you go back and ask a kid or an adult later in life, what was the most special thing about your mom and dad? What was the most special thing you remember about? Most of the time, it's something so little and something so minor. Just like, went outside and, my dad and I did this. And I remember that over and over again.
Saturday, Sundays at the beach, like just the family getting together. It was like a whole day of fun, and it, worn out by the end of it.
Like the best things in life are free.
Yeah.
The best things in life.
Cost us a cooler full of peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a ham sandwich.
That's it, man.
And $10 in gas.
The best things in life are free. And if we could get to that concept, I think the world would have more joy. And I think we probably would see inflation come down in the process.
Well, so to summarize, what I'm hearing is that maybe more is okay if it's more of something that's in alignment with our true selves, or for me, the things that promote happiness, like deep and meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
And that takes time slowing down to get into those, and then some type of spiritual relationship or a belief system there, and so there's power and presence and peace.
Yeah.
And to get there, that's sometimes maybe the hurdle or the journey is putting those other societal pressures, parental pressures, peer pressures, the Joneses, the Smiths, the Johnsons down the street, etc., to have time with our kids, right?
Yeah.
To have time with each other, to have community, to have time with Creator, Source, Spirit, whatever you want to call it. And so my former more for my daughter was money, things, experience.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now it's that.
Yeah.
It's joy and being happy with herself, and that comes from me, I guess. I got to hand that down, right?
Yeah.
How do we get there? Is where
think-
what I'm asking myself. How do you hand that down to
I
your
think
kids?
you have. I think you almost have to get there by going through the stages of life that we went through, where you have to test yourself,
Yeah.
especially as a man. You want to be competitive. You want to see everything you can obtain and get, and all those things. But once you get to that point, I think, and your soul starts to mature. I think then you probably get to a place where we are, right now, where it's saying, it's okay just to be comfortable. It's okay to be average. It's okay to be who you are. And if you're okay with that, that's your joy.
You know what these remind me of?
What?
Midlife thoughts.
Midlife thoughts. There it is. It goes back. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. There's that word mid again, right? Right. No, it's
Because you're right. You're absolutely right. You spend all that time in your life finding your way, clawing your way up through the world, figuring out your position in your family, position in your school, position in society. You're who you are.
Yeah.
And then you finally get there by 30, 40, 50 years old, and in the middle of your life, if you plan on living to 80, 90, 100 plus, and you're like, maybe it's time to take inventory. I've checked off all these boxes. Yeah. Tony Robbins says you check off all those boxes, then you get to the bottom one, you got to fill it in. Check midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And so midlife thoughts.
Definitely a good midlife crisis, is there? Yeah. It's a little reset.
It is. Yeah. I think it's a midlife opportunity.
A midlife opportunity. Oh, that's
a
good.
Midlife
I like that. I like that. That we're gonna end.
I got a journal entry.
All right, we're gonna end on that, and you're gonna lead us into some meditation. So after, say that again. It's not a midlife crisis. It's a midlife
opportunity.
Definitely ending on that. I hope you guys heard that. And if you guys aren't ending with us today, as usual, Wayne is going to lead us into some meditation. So wherever you guys are, wherever you're listening, wherever you may be, park your cars, take off your shoes, relax, and enjoy the sweet, sweet sounds of Wayne Smith leading us in meditation. Good.
All right, I gotta stop laughing at that intro. I appreciate it. Yes, for those of you that are sticking with us or just joining us here for meditation, go ahead and get comfortable. If you're driving for this one, I'd encourage you to park the car, pause it if you need to, and go ahead and get those feet flat on the ground, get to a comfortable spot, close your eyes perhaps, or leave them at a soft 3/4 gaze. Hands, you might want to put them folded or laying in your lap. Perhaps on your knees, face down, palms up, in receivership, whichever speaks to you, do that. As you're getting settled, find yourself a nice, relaxed, slightly deeper than normal breath. In through the nose and out through the mouth for the first few breaths, just clearing any stale layer or energy from your being. Watching your breath come in through your nose with your mind's eye, filling up your lungs with all that good air, love and light out there in the universe. And letting out all that stress, tension, anxiety, or any negative energy that we might be holding on to in our exhale. Another one or two on your end, and then we're going to find a subtle, normal breath. Relaxing into a breath in and out through your nostrils if possible. If you're a little stuffy this time of year or have a cold, you have to breathe out through your mouth. That's fine too. Just find a nice relaxed breath. I'd like to walk everybody through a little mini version of one of my favorite meditations called Thanksgiving. Watching our breath come in and go out. Keeping our thoughts at bay. Breathing in all that's good and letting out all that's stressful, bad, or negative, or feel it inside our body. And letting it out with each breath or exhale out. And on the next inhale, I'd like you to thank, exhaling you. For a couple of breaths here, thinking thank as we inhale. You on the exhale. And when you're ready, I invite you to draw in the image of someone really close, near and dear to you. This may be a loved one, a best friend, a wife, spouse, husband, parent, child. And as you're drawing in their image of their face, I invite you to think of them smiling or laughing, grabbing a good thought, memory that you have attached to them as you do so. Breathing in that moment, that smile, that laughter for just a moment. And when you're ready, I invite you to expand to someone else close to, near and dear to you, giving them thanks and gratitude for being in your life. Thinking of a fun memory, thought, or experience with them that brings a smile to your face, a warm feeling to your heart. Giving thanks to them for a few inhalations. Expanding on that, drawing in some friends, some family members, maybe work acquaintances and others in our life that we're thankful for, picturing their face, a smile, a laugh, enjoying this space of gratitude as we give thanks to those people for being in our lives, for impacting our lives, for sharing this journey with us, whether it be at home, at work, on the internet, wherever they may be, sending them thanks and love with each breath, holding them in our hearts, our mind's eye. Stay here in this space for as long as you may. And for those that this next invitation resonates with, I invite you to expand your space of gratitude to those in your life that you might not normally give thanks for. Maybe even an experience or something that's happened in the past that generally you would think of as bad or negative. And send it some love and some thanks and for some gratitude. For without it, you would not be here today. So if anything, I am thankful for that experience that you had that may not have been deemed good before. Let's send it some love and some thanks, breathing in all that's good into our heart and our lungs. And sending thanks and gratitude out with the exhale. Taking in all those people close, near and dear, and far away. into our hearts and our minds. Let's enjoy this space for a moment, for a few breaths on our own. Remembering all of the people and the things, experiences, etc. that we have here with us today to be thankful for. And slowly bring our awareness back to our bodies. Maybe wetting your lips, touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth, wiggling some fingers or some toes, before letting any light into your eyes. Thanking yourself for being here today. And I thank you for being with us. Thank you for this space and time, my fellow brothers and sisters. How do you feel?
Good. I usually, when I'm meditating, I always try to hold this posture, think naturally. But, man, I was holding kind of like this. Man, I don't know, but something, today, I don't know, the way those thumbs were meeting and the hands just like almost fully closed but not quite, just put me in it took me to where I was trying to get to.
So without going into, and that makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. I'm studying the mudras or the hand positions.
I didn't mean to do it.
Well, you landed in a space where some people, whether cross-fingered or overlapping hands is what I do, touching the thumbs together and bringing the hands together, I'm taught that keeps more of your energy circulating within.
Okay.
Whereas out here in receivership, you might be pulling in or giving some energy. Palms down might be reflecting it back into you or towards the ground as well.
Okay.
So there are belief structures that say each of those hand positions does something different.
I didn't even realize I was doing it. Part of the way through, I was like, wait a minute, my hands just, and I was like, it just felt like I was probably meant to do that. And
Absolutely.
once I did it, I felt myself more comfortable. And I was kind of thinking like, okay, what took me to the space that I'm in now? Because I feel really comfortable. And I was like, I think I like this posture. And it's not a posture that I typically use. So I think I'm going to probably try that without forcing it. Because I think the more you force it, but yeah, so.
Whatever feels right.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a pretty good episode today.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. The flow is a little different than I'd say the last one.
Yeah.
The last one felt really, I don't know, it flew by.
Yeah.
This one, there were some moments of pause, which may not have been a bad thing.
No, I think it was good. One of the things I struggle with is and I noticed maybe even talk about this on another episode when we get to the front end of episodes to the back, but I talk so fast and talking to you so much because I grew up, a big Italian family, and the only way to be heard was to talk fast and loud. So it's really hard for me sometimes not to talk fast and loud because I'm scared that I'm going to get cut off before my complete thought comes out. And this conversation with you, like you're really good about like, I feel like I have the space to get my thought out without, and it took me the first episode, I think, to realize, okay, I can slow down a little bit. You know, I think that's why I always feel like I like doing those whiskey sessions, because I can talk and nobody can interrupt me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're hard. They're a lot harder because I'm on camera by myself and there's no feedback, and that's very difficult to do.
Well, and to your point, a phone conversation with me in the middle of the day is often way different than a conversation like this, or if you came to my house and my phone's on the charger.
Yeah.
Typically, because for me, I might be linear
Yeah.
between tasks, you know, that I've set out throughout the day that I have a limited time to accomplish in my head.
Yeah.
And yet I don't want to miss a conversation with a friend.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm thinking you in this example.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
on the phone, I might be a little quicker, you know, or hey, Matt,
Yeah.
you know, because I want to say something real quick, and I know that I've got 2-3 minutes, and you're going to have a follow up or something
Yeah.
to my point, and I want to hear it.
Yeah.
And so, I'm thankful that this is, you know, an hour plus, and
Yeah.
we can
Well, it's good
be
stuff.
unlimited.
Well, I guess let's go ahead and get off and call it a day.
Yeah.
All right, brother. So,
love.
yeah, man. Much love. Yep.